In our last episode, we witnessed the birth of gaming. From bouncing dots in a physics lab to the explosive rise and fall of Atari. But from the rubble of the 1983 crash, a new age was about to rise. An era defined not just by games, but by war. Welcome to the evolution of consoles, Part 2, the Console Wars. After the crash of 1983, many believed console gaming was finished, a passing fad that had burned out too quickly. But in Japan, a company known for toys and arcade hits had other plans. Nintendo, originally a playing card manufacturer, had already dipped into gaming, with arcade hits like Donkey Kong and the Game & Watch handheld in 1983. They launched the Famicom, short for Family Computer. Sleek, affordable, and reliable, the Famicom became a massive hit in Japan. But the American market was a different story. Retailers were skeptical. The words video game were practically toxic. So Nintendo rebranded. In 1985, they launched the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, in North America. Not as a gaming console, but as an entertainment system. They built trust. They included a toy-like robot named ROB, the Robotic Operating Buddy, and the Zapper Light Gun. It was a Trojan horse strategy, hide the console beneath novelty accessories. But what really sold the NES were the games. Super Mario Bros., Duck Hunt, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid. These were polished, colorful and immersive. Nintendo established strict quality control and licensing rules for third-party developers, preventing the chaos that sank Atari. By 1987, Nintendo owned over 80% of the North American market. A new standard had been set. Gaming was back, and stronger than ever. While Nintendo was dominating homes, a challenger was quietly preparing in the wings. Sega, another Japanese company known for arcade games, had already tested the waters with the SG-1000 and later the Sega Master System. Released in 1985 in Japan and in 1986 overseas, the Master System was more powerful than the NES, technically. It had a broader color palette, better sound capabilities, and a futuristic look. But it struggled to compete. Nintendo had already locked down most retailers and third-party developers with exclusive contracts. If you made a game for Nintendo, you couldn't make them for anyone else. And that hurt Sega. Still, Sega pushed hard, especially in Europe and Brazil, where the Master System gained a cult following. They marketed to a slightly older audience, leaning into the edgy branding and more arcade-style experience. Games like Ella Kid in Miracle World and Phantasy Star gave the console identity, but they couldn't dethrone Nintendo. However, Sega was learning, and they were about to strike back with a 16-bit revolution. In 1988, Sega launched the Mega Drive in Japan, known as the Genesis in North America. It was powerful, fast and stylish, and it came with an aggressive new attitude. When it hit North America in 1989, Sega's marketing team went all in. Their slogan, "Genesis does what Nintendo don't." They positioned themselves as a cool alternative to Nintendo. A brand for older kids, teens and arcade fans. Sega also had something else, Sonic the Hedgehog. Released in 1991, Sonic was fast, flashy and the anti-Mario in every way. The Genesis became known for speed, sport games and attitude. titles like Street of Rage, Mortal Kombat, and NHL 94 gave it edge. Meanwhile, Nintendo responded with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES, in 1990. In 1991 in North America. It had slower hardware but better graphics and sound. Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and Super Metroid became instant classics. The battle lines were drawn. The early 90s were a golden age and a battlefield. Sega and Nintendo went head to head in one of the most iconic rivalries in gaming history. Their differences weren't tactical, they were philosophical. Sega courted older players with edgier content. They embraced celebrity endorsement, violent games, and pop culture tie-ins. Nintendo stayed in the family-friendly course. Polished, colorful, wholesome. Both consoles had their strengths. The SNES offered superior graphics and unforgettable RPGs like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound. The Genesis countered with Sonic, Shining Force, and a stronger sports library. This era also saw the rise of gaming magazines, cheat codes, playground rivalries, and midnight releases. You were either Team Sega or Team Nintendo, and for a while both were thriving. As games grew larger and more complex, developers began to hit the limits of cartridges. Enter the CD-ROM. CDs could hold far more data, offer full motion video, voice acting, and multimedia elements. But they came with a downside: slower load times, higher manufacturing costs, and new hardware challenges. Sega was first to try. In 1992, they released the Sega CD, an add-on for the Genesis. It promised cinematic experience and FMV games like Night Trap and Sewer Shark. While novel, these games often felt like interactive movies and weren't very fun. Few developers embraced it. Adoption was low, and Sega's next move, the 32X, only confused consumers further. Nintendo, meanwhile, had considered a CD add-on too. They partnered with Sony to develop a CD-based SNES expansion. But that deal collapsed, and Sony decided to go their own way. It was a decision that would change gaming forever. Sega had once been on top, but a series of missteps changed everything. The 32X was underpowered and poorly supported. The Sega CD was innovative but unpopular. Gamers and developers alike were confused. Then came the Sega Saturn, rushed to the market in 1995 to beat Sony's upcoming PlayStation. But it was expensive, hard to program for, and lacked strong launch titles. Worst of all, Sony's PlayStation launched soon after. Cheaper, easier to develop for, and backed by third-party giants like Square, Namco, and Capcom. By 1996, the writing was on the wall. The Saturn struggled, developers abandoned ship. Sega's brand, once bold and innovative, was now seen as fragmented and unreliable. Nintendo, meanwhile, was preparing its Counter-Strike. Sony's PlayStation, launched in 1994 in Japan and 1995 globally, was a revolution. Sleek, modern, CD-based. It felt grown up. Sony courted developers aggressively, offering easy tools, better profit shares, and more creative freedom. They scored major wins: Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, Gran Turismo, Tekken, games that pushed boundaries. Nintendo's Nintendo 64 launched in 1996, stayed with cartridges, prioritizing speed and anti-piracy. While it gave us legendary titles like Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and GoldenEye 007, the storage limitations turned off many third-party developers. In the end, PlayStation outsold the N64 by a wide margin. Sega's Dreamcast, released in 1999, was innovative and beloved. But it was too late. By 2001, Sega exited the console market entirely, and Sony stood victorious. From the ashes of the crash rose titans. Nintendo redefined quality and consistency. Sega brought edge and speed. But it was Sony, the outsider, who changed everything. The console wars were over, for now. But a new challenger was on the horizon. In part 3, the 21st century begins, and the fight for future gaming gets personal. I want to thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I hopefully see you in the next video. Bye everyone.